wanna know what you, yeah, I wanna know what you want. My niggas gon' blow at you, yeah, my niggas gon' blow at you down.
Hey, and how's it going, B+ gang? I hope you guys have been taking it easy and enjoying your summer vacation, you know, just find a nice relaxing spot, maybe somewhere along the beach or some shit, where you can just sit back and not have to worry about all the ins and outs of regular life. Everybody knows how important it is to feel well rested and mentally fresh, but those rules don't apply to me because I'm him, simply. Anyways though, I had to stop my well-deserved rest to make sure I give you guys some of that gold standard B+ content. So in today's video, we're gonna be tackling Young Thug's predicament with the whole YSL RICO indictment. With my track record recently, I was kind of surprised that I hadn't yet made a single video talking about the whole Young Thug situation, considering that he's just like one of the most influential artists of all time, right? But here we are. You know, Young Thug is also one of my personal favorite artists, so I thought that I was just not doing it justice. It's kind of common knowledge at this point, but if you're unaware, a brief rundown goes like this. In May of 2022, rapper Jeffrey Williams, also known as Young Thug, was arrested for participation in a criminal street gang along with 27 other individuals, also known as the RICO charge. Now, if you don't know about the RICO charge, it has become almost like the new secret weapon to a lot of these law enforcement guys. What it does is it basically allows them to detain a large number of members from a criminal organization, and essentially what they're hoping for is to take them all out at one time. The RICO was famously used by the US government against the mob when they were in their heyday in the past, but nowadays it's been getting used a lot on gangs, specifically gangs that command a large degree of public influence. So ding ding ding, there are your rappers. One of the poor saps that was picked up in the YSL RICO case was rapper Gunna, who was like Young Thug's protege. Now, if this is me, right, and 28 people are being arrested at one time, that would fucking start ringing off bells in my head. And the fact that they arrested Gunna basically just for being associated with YSL should say a lot. It wasn't even one day into the detainment and people could just tell, you know, they could just smell it on Gunna that he was gonna end up spilling the beans.
Look, give me some McDonald's. When you come back, I might remember something.
And this, my friends, is the power of the RICO right here. The goal is to cast an extremely wide net, and eventually a weak link will hopefully form in the organization. And as far as we all know, the only reason Gunna was able to become recruited into YSL is because he was a musician. He wasn't some like ultra street dude who like caught bodies or like sold a large amount of dope. If anything, he's like me or you or something. He's like a regular guy. He's a regular guy, at least compared to the other guys in this indictment. So time was ticking, and Gunna had two options at the end of the day. It was either stay 10 toes down, don't say anything, but potentially go down for some shit you really didn't even do, or he could talk and take a plea deal, but he would still have his millions and mansions. Which one do you think he was gonna choose?
The deal that set Gunna free, a major development in a huge racketeering case. The Atlanta-born rapper, Gunna, whose given name is Sergio Kitchens, made a deal with prosecutors and walked out of the Fulton County Jail late this afternoon. Now, Gunna will not have to stand trial early next year with rapper Young Thug and more than 24 other defendants who prosecutors say were part of a racketeering conspiracy.
And to be fair, if I'm Gunna, right? If I'm Gunna, I love Young Thug, but I'm doing the same exact shit. You got me f***ed up. Y'all hired me to be an artist, nigga. Drip too hard. Now y'all talking about doing hard time? This was not part of the onboarding, my brother. Personally, I'm not really the biggest enthusiast of the no snitching culture, only because it's just so picky and choosy about who can be labeled as a snitch. But if someone wants to stick to their own personal creed or philosophy of not cooperating with police, I can't really judge. It's kind of admirable, I think. I just think it's really funny though, like for some reason, whenever these conversations come up, there's a certain type of person that has become far too prevalent in these kinds of situations. I don't know what kind of characteristics I could distinguish these guys as, but let's just say, let's call them the Slide for Vaughn community. Anyways, besides the point. Now, Gunna actually took a special type of plea deal called an Alford plea, where they can't really use his statements against anybody else but him. But if you ask me, he technically still spilled the fucking beans, you know? Okay, a lot of y'all Gunna defenders gotta answer me that, because if a lot of y'all care so much about whether or not he snitched, how are y'all gonna be so proud and so defendant over a technicality? I know the Alford plea creates a special circumstance. Had it not been there, Gunna walks in and says the same exact words he said, everybody's calling him a snitch. I don't get it, bro. Because what he does still makes a lot of this information public. He still let the cat out of the bag. Like, sure, they can't technically use it, but now everybody remembers when Gunna called YSL a gang and wished that it would end, especially the jury and the prosecution, but most importantly, Young Thug himself.
Hey, Durk, I know I'm dropping this surprise album on the same day Buddy dropped his album. That shit coming up soon. I need a verse from you. If you feel like replying, if you feel like you want to reply to what that nigga saying or something, man, don't do it. Drop it on my album. I'm dropping a surprise album on the same day that fuck nigga dropped. Send your verse in, bro. I want you and Wham on the same song. Send your verse in.
Now I do want to remind you guys that Gunna is still signed to YSL, thus meaning that Young Thug still makes money off of his music. And they released their album on the same day, and this phone call released only a couple days before to obviously drum up some controversy and make people want to hear these albums more. There's no doubt in my mind that Young Thug would still want Gunna's album to sell well because it's only really him and Gunna holding YSL up musically at this point. Rest in peace to Lil Keed. Also appears as though Young Thug doesn't care about damaging Gunna's image if it means more sales, because people have honestly just been waiting around for Thug to give the okay on Gunna's street cred. You know, maybe just post a little picture with the arm around him. That's all they needed. But instead, this is what we got. And this is what I was getting at when I talked about the whole snitch culture thing being very picky and choosy, because what if I told you there was another YSL member who sang just like Gunna did, but the streets still vouched for him?
Take beats on the track, boy. Young producers.
So, okay, a lot of you guys probably don't know, but Unfunk, real name Quantavious Greer, is the actual brother of Young Thug, like out of the same womb and shit. And while everybody was preoccupied with calling Gunna a snitch, only a month later, Unfunk would be released on a plea deal that he signed of his very own. Now, okay, recall what I said earlier about these RICO cases turning into every man for himself very quickly. That's exactly what the D's want you to feel. They want you to feel like you're running out of options, so eventually you end up telling on the rest of your co-defendant. And while a lot of people were set on Gunna being a snitch, they weren't too sure about Unfunk. So he actually went onto his Instagram to say this: "Damn, people really think I told on my own brother. Shaking my head. Show me in my paperwork where I told on anybody. LOL. I'm not even finna entertain any of it. Peace and blessings." But I think eventually he would regret saying that, especially when the No Jumper Twitter account produced that very same paperwork he claimed didn't exist. Okay, so there's like 4 slides of paperwork here, all of which investigators are asking Unfunk certain questions, but if you pay attention, these are almost all of the same questions that Gunna answered. But if I'm not mistaken, Unfunk didn't really get the same plea as Gunna, so I'm not sure if that would make his statements free to use in the court case. Even if he did end up taking the same plea, like I said earlier, it's just more undeniable proof that YSL is in fact a gang. The jury and the prosecution, while they can't use this direct information, still hold that information subconsciously. But if we look onto slide 2 here, we can see some very questionable behavior for someone claiming that they're not a snitch. Under section 4, where it says defendant's acknowledgements, we can clearly see Unfunk is signing off on these statements that he is deeming as true. We see here that he signed off on things like YSL is in fact a gang. He signed off on some of the identifiers of YSL being that they wear green or that they wear the words YSL on their person. But on the next slide, it gets a little worse, if you will. It's clear as day on this page, and we can all see it says, "I have personal knowledge that members and or associates of YSL have committed at least one of the following acts as alleged. Those include a murder, aggravated assault, robbery, theft, illegal gun possession, and illegal firearm possession." So this is him, a decently high-ranking member in YSL, basically confirming that, yeah, he does have knowledge of his co-defendants committing the crimes alleged in this indictment. In simple words, this nigga is snitching on his own brother, yo. Because the prosecution is seeing Young Thug as the epicenter of this case, and all of the charges kind of lead back to him as being the leader or mastermind of YSL. One of the biggest things here is that the prosecution has to prove YSL is gang. And they couldn't use Gunna's admission, but they sure as hell might be able to use Unfunk's. And actually that would mean a lot more since he had a closer connection to Thug, so he couldn't use the same excuse of only being a YSL artist. That's the whole reason I'll say Young Thug really doesn't like Gunna, because he has no problem calling him a snitch, but his own brother, who arguably betrayed him way worse, got radio silence. And it gets even worse, because if you were to go back in time a little bit, back to a few years ago, Unfunk was sitting in prison for a life sentence that he already did 11 years of. The only reason he got out early is because Young Thug had the resources to get good legal counsel and help him out. So Young Thug at one point in time even helped him get out of a life sentence, but in the end he still got betrayed betrayed. And to make it even worse, it was by his own flesh and blood, no less. Like, I don't know much, okay, but I just know that that must hurt beyond belief. And I believe that that was part of the reason that he wasn't really ready to speak on this situation as well as he was on the Gunna situation. But oh wait, if you thought it ended there, we're not even done with Unfunk. Not even close. Because just 5 months after taking his plea deal and becoming a free-ish man, the dude got arrested in a traffic stop for having a firearm as a convicted felon. Like, you literally could not make this shit up even if you tried. And now in June of 2023, Unfunk has been sentenced to 9.5 years in prison after already snitching and trying to end his own RICO case. Like, bro, I've never seen someone unsuccessfully snitch and get away with it, let alone a quote-unquote real street dude. But I guess there's a first time for everything. At the end of the day, the person I feel the most bad for outside of like Young Thug, I mean, of course, the dude is literally finding out the people he thought were the realest and closest to him are actually soft and fake as shit. I mean, at least by his metrics. But anyway, the person I feel bad for the most is definitely Young Thug's mom. I mean, I'm sure she's probably tucked away in some mansion somewhere, but I just like to imagine that all of these legal battles with her 2 sons is creating some kind of internal conflict, right? Because on one hand, you have a son that is a multi-continental millionaire superstar who could potentially lose his entire life's work and spend over 10 years in jail. But on the other hand, you have a son that has spent a majority of the last 20 years in jail, and now he's just gone and fucked up the chances of both himself and your other son from being released anytime soon. Shit tragic. Anyways, guys, that's it for today's video. I just wanted to hop in real quick and give my thoughts on this situation because it seems like there's just no help for these YSL guys. And there's new information coming out almost weekly at this point that there are other members besides Gunna and Unfunk to even take plea deals. So at this point, I wouldn't even be surprised if there are other members that are just singing like canaries regardless if there's a plea deal present or not, because that's just how these things go. I also had heard some news that the feds have had certain members' phone tapped for actual like years at this point. So let's just say the feds are working with a mountain of evidence that I wouldn't pray to go against. What are you guys' thoughts on this whole thing? Is Thug guilty? Did Gunna actually snitch? Was Unfunk justified in spilling the beans as much as he did? Let me know down in those comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.